Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa RIDGEN. We begin in Rome. The Métis and Inuit delegation have wrapped up their meeting with Pope Francis at the Vatican. They shared with him how the horrific abuses that they suffered at residential schools still affects their lives. Tina House has this report from Rome.
It's all led up to this moment as survivors and leaders gathered in Rome to meet the Pope at the Vatican. For the Métis delegation, 3 residential school survivors were able to share their stories with him personally and tell him how the abuse they suffered has deeply affected their lives and the lives of their children and grandchildren.
But those 3 survivors being representative of and emblematic of many, many, many more at home. And I cannot say enough about Angie and Anne and Emile and how incredibly I have 3 new, never mind Marvel and their universe, those superheroes are right there in that room.
And Métis National Council President CARON says that the real action the delegation calls upon is an apology on Turtle Island when he visits Canada in the near future. And then there is the important issue of residential school records that have not been released from the church.
So we want unfettered access to those records. We also want access to our cultural artifacts that are held here in Rome and at the Vatican. Those artifacts tell a story about our communities. Those are our history. In reconciliation, we talked about an apology and that acknowledgement. We've heard from our survivors that many of them need that to move forward.
ALFREDO CHIRELLI has worked in St. Peter's Square for over 40 years, selling rosaries and holy water. He found out about the horrors at Canadian residential schools on television in Italy.
It broke my heart. I saw that if you see them, I have a problem for all people, but for the children more. It broke my heart because I am father, I am grandfather, I have the children. I think you go in the school, I have the problem for the priest, for the professor. I don't know if my relation, I don't know. I cry for the baby, for the children.
We have done the difficult work of preparing for our journey, for our conversation with the Pope. We have done the work of translating our words to those that he would understand. And now it is his turn to join us in that work. He and Catholics around the world must now do the work of translating the words that we have spoken today and will continue to speak from their heads into their hearts and ultimately into real action.
The Inuit delegation met with the Pope after the Métis National Council.
There were a number of conversations about faith and about the ongoing presence of the Catholic Church in Inuit Nunangat. There was a lot of conversation about residential schools and the negative impacts of residential schools on Inuit and the intergenerational trauma aspect of residential schools.
Obed also said that they requested that the Pope intervene in the case of former priest Johannes Revoir, who's wanted for sex crimes he allegedly committed in the 1960s in Nunavut. In 1993, he fled to France, which does not have an extradition order with Canada. And just last month, RCMP in Nunavut issued an arrest warrant for him.
It is such a heartbreaking reality that some people who should have been brought to justice decades ago have not seen justice, and those who have been abused and those victims have sometimes died before they have seen justice.
Since the press conference, the Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate has requested a meeting in Rome with President Nathan Obed regarding Johannes Revoir. We will bring you more updates on that story later this week. Tina House, APTN National News, Rome.
And that Roman Catholic priest who the Inuit delegates talked about in their meeting with the Pope is facing a new criminal charge, but history shows it could be difficult to have it stick. Father Johannes Rivar is now facing a charge of sexual assault that police claim happened in Nunavut 47 years ago. The 93-year-old now lives in France, a country that doesn't extradite its citizens to face charges elsewhere. In 1997, Rivar was charged with 3 counts of sexual abuse here. They were dropped in 2017 because Canada said France wasn't cooperating. At the Vatican Monday, Inuit leader Natan Obed asked the Pope to help return Rivar to Canada to face the courts. As Indigenous survivors and leaders meet with Pope Francis this week, not everyone back home is confident in what concrete actions a papal apology could achieve. Our reporter Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs brings us to Fort Nelson, British Columbia, for that story.
So pre-LAWLOR post. Dig into the billions of dollars in the Vatican. Okay, start repairing the damage. Start looking after these communities. Adequate housing, restore the language, support the culture.
KATHIE DICKIE wants reconciliation from the Roman Catholic Church, but she's not sold on a papal apology as a be-all, end-all.
I remember being made a soldier of God by Bishop Hubert O'Connor. And every Sunday we had to make a point of praying for, please pray for Bishop Hubert O'Connor. And that was just one of the things that you do every Sunday. And it's only later that I found out that Bishop Hubert O'Connor had sexually abused girls in residential school near Williams Lake.
Dickie is from Fort Nelson First Nation, British Columbia. She was taken from her home and forced to attend Lower Post Residential School. 8 of her immediate 13 family members also attended residential school.
No one ever talked about it. And so we started to hold these sessions, and I remember one session that we had, it was a community meeting, and my dad came. And he got really angry because he felt like we were attacking the church. Like, how dare we attack the church? And then he left the meeting. And then shortly thereafter, others left because of just this emotional outburst.
Almost 1/3 of the 130 residential schools in Canada were operated by Catholic missionary congregations. This week, Métis, Inuit, and First Nations delegates are in Rome speaking with the Pope on the cultural genocide inflicted on Indigenous people because of residential school.
What's he going to say? What could he possibly say to repair all the damage he's done to generations of our families and our communities? Like, they've destroyed so many lives, and they continue to do it. They just continue to do it.
What can be done? Dickie suggests worldwide education and acceptance of Indigenous ways of being.
One more thing I think it's really important that the Catholic Church do is to acknowledge and value Native spirituality. And all those die-hard Catholics that are just totally against any other religion, other way of thinking, any other spirituality, you need to open that door. Because if you're just judging and condemning, you're not a Christian, you're not a Catholic, you don't go to church on Sundays. That's so wrong.
While there are undeniable effects of intergenerational trauma in her community, Dickie says she's hopeful that cycles will be broken.
This is Charlotte.
Hi. With love and family unity. Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs, APTN National News, Fort Nelson First Nation.
Disgraced fashion mogul Peter Nygaard's legal woes are far from over. Though he's already being held in a Toronto jail, he appeared before a Montreal judge today in a virtual court hearing to face additional sex charges. In a hearing held at the Montreal courthouse, 80-year-old Nygaard was charged with 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. The incident allegedly took place in Montreal in the late 1990s. The victim's identity is protected by a publication ban. Nygaard is being held on at least 6 charges in Canada of sexual assault. He's also facing extradition to the U.S., where another class action lawsuit is pending. An APTN investigation a year ago revealed that at least 2 Indigenous women in Winnipeg filed police complaints against Nygaard. No charges came from those complaints. Well, none of Nunavut's long-standing challenges happen in isolation, whether that is housing or infectious disease. As our Kent Driscoll reports, when those long-standing problems begin to stack up, that's when a community can suffer.
Punakto Nunavut is located on southeast Baffin Island, less than an hour from Iqaluit by air. Home to just under 1,500 people, it provides one of the prettiest views in the territory. Right now, the community is under pressure from two serious illnesses at once: COVID-19 and tuberculosis.
The overall effect is that a lot of people are required to be in isolation. And that really has a considerable impact on the work environment and also the schools. But we are managing reasonably well. Like, our essential services are being all provided. And that is water, sewage from the hamlet, and as well as the medical services. So the essential services and also the stores are operating.
The COVID may be clearing up, but the government of Nunavut's COVID tracking makes certainty impossible. During this most recent wave of COVID-19, Nunavut has drastically scaled back contact tracing and testing. Last week had the government reporting 9 active COVID cases in Penticton. This week, just 2. The actual number is much, much higher, according to the mayor.
We had reported to us that we're roughly, that this was last Monday, 47 COVID active within the community. And I think 23 symptomatic cases.
We asked the government of Nunavut to tell us just how many active cases of tuberculosis there are in Penticton. They didn't respond. Schools and offices remain open. The only way things are going to improve is with more housing. Overcrowded conditions are where both TB and COVID thrive.
And many of the homes have 10, 12 people living there, where there is 3 or 4 people to 1 bedroom. And that speaks for itself and very well explains the acuity of our tuberculosis situation.
Penticton needs about 100 homes just to catch up to demand. Nunavut as a whole needs 3,000 homes to do the same. The federal government recently promised to fund 300 homes for Nunavut. The territorial government says they're going to build 1,000 homes during their term of office. None of that reaches the demand, which means for the meantime, infectious disease in Nunavut will spread at a higher rate than other regions because overcrowded homes are where those illnesses thrive. Ken Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
A parliamentary committee is exploring the inclusion of Indigenous languages on election ballots. On Tuesday, it heard from Elections Canada. Chief Electoral Officer STEPHANE told the committee Indigenous languages are included on posters and at polling stations, but not currently on ballots. Nunavut NDP MP Lori Idlut addressed the committee in a Inuktitut. She said that many elders in her constituency don't speak English. In response, Perrault had this to say.
I do believe, as I said at the outset, that the presence of Indigenous languages at the polls is an important element of making sure that the voting experience is reflective of their identity. And to me, that is a significant step in the process of reconciliation. I'm not saying that everything can happen immediately. I think we need to work on this, but as I said, I'm committed, Madam Chair, to working on this and increasing the presence of Indigenous languages.
We need to take a break, but first a word from our reporter in Italy.
Tanse, I'm Tina House in Rome, Italy. Stay tuned to APTN National News all week as we bring you stories from the Vatican as Indigenous leaders and survivors meet with the Pope on their walk for reconciliation.
A proposed hydroelectricity project is ruffling feathers in a small community in northern British Columbia. Some residents are worried about the project, but the First Nation company says the project will benefit everyone. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
This is where the power station is going to be, right straight through here.
Atlin resident JUDI URQUHART has a great view of Pine Creek Beach from her second floor window, but that view could soon be ruined. Atlin gets its power from this hydroelectric powerhouse along Pine Creek. The Taku River Tlingit First Nation next door to Atlin wants to expand its current hydroelectric output and build an additional powerhouse along the creek, generating 8.5 megawatts of hydroelectric power that the First Nation would sell to the Yukon for profit. Not everyone likes the idea.
I would say the majority of our town people are not for the project.
URQUHART says the new powerhouse would choke off Pine Creek and kill the wetlands in the area.
That is a real area of nesting birds and moose and deer and bear. We have all of those animals down there on those lands.
So we moved it further back to address those concerns, which consequently...
Peter KIRBY says not to worry. He's a Taku River member and head of the band-owned company behind the project. He says concern for the wetlands are unfounded.
Some people don't understand what a wetland is, so they call it a wetland when in fact it's not, but that doesn't diminish our intent to address the impacts as they arise.
So this is part of the Heritage Trail, which follows the creek. This will be gone.
Town resident Paul Lucas wonders why the new powerhouse is being built at all.
They're willing to actually drive it, clear cut this entire area, blast thousands of tons of rock, drive a penstock into the recreational and environmental area, build a power plant meters from people's residences, and pump a pot of warm water into Atlin Lake for 2.8 megawatts.
But KIRBY says that powerhouse is needed.
Anytime there's an expensive project, you need to try to generate as much revenue as you can. And so every little bit of energy that we can derive from the opportunity our resources provide us, we need to do that.
First Nation spokesperson CHARMAINE THOM says there is always opposition to projects like this, but if approved, it will help fight climate change.
If we all start taking care of the land and we all start putting in towards doing things differently where we're not adding to the emissions, I feel like we're moving in the right direction.
This pole is a slide gate that controls the amount of water that can go into the penstock.
KIRBY echoes that. It will benefit everyone by reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
But I think if anybody pulls out of the personal, the local, and looks at what does this project mean for the world, for the region, and for future generations, there's no question this is a wonderful project.
In the coming months, the Taku River Tlingit will hold a joint clan meeting to decide whether or not the project goes ahead. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Atlin, British Columbia.
An Indigenous-led group held a rally today at the Manitoba Legislature in opposition to a proposed silica sand mine at the Hullahwater First Nation territory. Camp Morningstar held the press conference following an unanswered letter they sent to the Manitoba Premier back in November regarding concerns raised about Canadian Premium Sand's proposed silica sand mining project. Some of those concerns include having meaningful consultations with community members and the fear of losing a community trap line, as well as the general health of area residents.
Just to draw attention to the rest of the population of Manitoba and Canada that what is being proposed in our backyard is, as we see it, will be very destructive. An awareness, further education to the public that silica sand mining is not healthy for anybody. Certainly not for the people who live in the backyard of where they're proposing to extract silica sand.
We've reached out to the Premier's office for a comment about the mine project, but did not hear back by airtime. Well, environmental and social organizations from across Canada are calling on the federal government to reject a proposed Bay du Nord offshore drilling project. The proposed project is located in the Flemish Pass Basin. That's around 500 kilometers northeast of St. John's, Newfoundland. If approved, it would be Canada's first deepwater drilling site and expected to produce as many as 200,000 barrels of oil a day. Last week, a panel of organizations opposing the project said it would result in serious environmental impacts like pollution. Amy Norman, an Inuk member of the Labrador Land Protectors, says the project will prevent future generations from inheriting the land.
I want to be able to teach my grandchildren how to ice fish. If we continue to pursue oil and gas, if we continue to green light and greenwash these horrible polluters, my grandchildren will have nothing to inherit. There won't be any ice to fish on. And as an Inuk, I cannot sit by while that happens.
We need to take a break, but still ahead, a peek at tonight's face-to-face. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This beautiful tree hugger was captured by Jake Freeman at Beacon Hill Park in Victoria, BC. Tanis Miller clearly loves a huge redwood tree as much as we do here. Weather looks incredible there. You can send us your photos too. Email them to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east coast, we got 6 in snow for St. John, sunshine, and 3 for Fredericton. Nain, you're expecting snow, 1 degree, -9 and cloud for Inukjuak. Chibougamau -1 and cloud, Rouyn-Noranda and Val-d'Or both -6 and sunny skies. Sunshine for most of southern Ontario, 0 in Ottawa, 3 in London. 1 and snow for Thunder Bay and Sioux Lookout, -2 and snow for Big Trout Lake. Pucketwagan, mix of sun and cloud, -9, -15 and sunny for Churchill. 0 and sunshine for Brandon. Gimli, you're looking at 1 and snow. 14 and cloud for Swift Current, -2 and snow for Saskatoon. 5 and sunshine for Meadow Lake, 3 and snow for Stony Rapids. Sunshine and 11 degrees for Grand Prairie and Fort McMurray. 16 and sunny for Calgary and Lethbridge. 12 and showers for Kamloops and Penticton. 13 and showers for Victoria. 8 and a chance of flurries actually for Smithers. 5 and some showers for Dease Lake. Minus 19 and snow for Rock River. Minus 13 and clear for Old Crow. Fort Simpson, minus 6 and snow. Wrigley, snow for you, minus 11. Inuvik, minus 25, clear skies. Paulatuk, minus 26 and clear. Minus 17 and sunny for Baker Lake and Chesterfield. Minus 8 and snow for New Yacht. Minus 7 and snow for Igloolik. Minus 8 and snow for Pangertung. A new episode of Face to Face is just minutes away. Tonight's guest is Letitia Wells, a former civil servant who is now one of the lead plaintiffs in a proposed class action lawsuit against the federal government. Wells is alleging widespread discrimination and a climate of fear and intimidation amongst the workforce at Indian Oil and Gas Canada.
I don't think that the government has hiring practices that allows authentic Indigenous people to get through their doors. Those positions are reserved for pretend Indians or Indians that claim to have some type of identity within them, but have no proof. It's illegal to ask a person claiming Indigenous identity within the government for proof. So there is a pattern being developed that a lot of non-Indigenous people are telling other non-Indigenous people to claim Métis status. It's an easier foot in the door.
That's a wrap for your news tonight. You can stay tuned right now for that episode of Face to Face with Dennis Ward. I'm Melissa Ridgen. We're always glad you can join us. Have a great night.